Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am extra excited today because as you are listening, we are at episode 50. That's right, 50. And officially 1 full year of How the Wise One Grows podcast. We're 1 year old. I'm so excited. But truly, I cannot thank each and every one of you who has listened to this podcast over the last year for being a part of this journey with me. Each of these conversations that we've had has helped me grow so much as a person, and I quite honestly feel like a much different person than the girl who started this podcast a year ago. And that's a tribute to the growth we've been doing together collectively. So thank you. Thank you for having these conversations with me. Thank you for holding this space. Thank you for every listen, every share, every comment, every review. This podcast means the world to me. You mean the world to me. And I can't wait to continue growing with you. So to celebrate, I thought the best way would be to do a special 1 year check-in with my best friend, Emma, who we talked to in episode 12. And we decided to make it extra fun by wheel throwing during our conversation. So both Emma and I are potters and have been doing ceramics together since high school. And if you watch on YouTube, there's a link in the show notes. You can watch us create pots during this conversation. And I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to give away one of the pieces of pottery created during this conversation. So all you have to do to enter is leave a review for this podcast on your favorite streaming platform, and you get a bonus entry if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. So at the beginning, because we are wheel throwing and I have some old clunky wheels, you'll hear some rougher clay sounds, but I promise it gets better throughout the conversation. So keep listening. And this is a really good one you don't want to miss. Everybody's learning. Everybody's growing. Everybody's got to start somewhere. We're just gonna do it. You ready? Mm-hmm. Hi everyone, and welcome back to How the Wise One Grows. Today's episode is a total experiment, and I'm glad that you are joining us because I'm with my best friend, Emma, and I'm making her, she too is a potter, so we're doing a clay conversation, and we're celebrating 1 year of How the Wise One Grows with us wheel throwing. So I definitely recommend that you watch this on YouTube because it will be way more fun for you to watch there. You might get Luna's butt in the camera a good bit, which is double fun. Yeah, go over to YouTube. The link is in the show notes so you can watch us there. And if you hear some weird wheel sounds, it's because we're making some pots. So before we get started, let's just take a moment to land together with 3 deep breaths. So just notice now where your body touches the earth. Let your shoulders soften down the back. And inhale, fill your chest, fill your belly with air. Exhale, open your mouth, let it out. Again, inhale, chest and belly expand. Exhale, open your mouth, let it go. One more inhale. And exhale. And you can slowly open your eyes as you return to this space. So today we are in my sunroom with my best friend, Emma Hern, who you got to meet in episode 12 of season 1. And we talked about the power of female friendship in that episode. But Emma is a huge part of why I started this podcast a year ago, because she told me, and we can just start throwing. She told me I was in a place where I was feeling really low, feeling really down. Like, I knew it was time for some changes and transition, but I didn't really feel ready for that. And I just felt stuck and like unsure of what to do, unsure of how to move. And Emma told me she wrote me a Christmas card, and she said, do what brings you joy. Just follow the joy and the rest will come. So that was what a big part of why I started this podcast was just following the joy and letting the rest follow. So we're with my friend who you hear her music in this podcast, and she's my constant inspiration, and we're just gonna like hang out and reflect on the last year together. And you're just going to embrace all these crazy clay sounds.
And it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be here with my buddy.
I'm so happy.
And I think I'm kind of like turning the microphone around on her this episode. So
the only person I would really trust enough to do that.
So I feel like I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to kind of reflect over what the last year has been like as you've kind of focused on sparking that joy in your life and following that path, and how that's felt on your day-to-day life and how you're feeling about the podcast overall.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've talked about this, but I really feel like a different person than I was a year ago. And I have found it really interesting because not that much has changed, right? Like, I think when I started this podcast a year ago, I was also starting like really diving into the How the Wise One Grows book that I'm working on. And in my head, like the Saturn in me is like, I'm going to like have a #1 podcast and a best-selling book, and it's going to happen so fast, and I'm going to get all this external validation, and that's what's going to make me feel good inside. And over the last year, and the intention I kind of set at the beginning of this podcast was to grow slow and let it be about feeling authentic. And I feel like, externally, again, like not that much has changed in the day-to-day. I'm still teaching for Connect Wellness and running those programs. I'm definitely putting a lot more time into podcasting, and that probably takes up the majority of my workday energy, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But inside I feel so different. Like, I notice I feel so much more present. Like, I'm a lot less in my head. I feel a lot less anxious. I overall, again, like, feel a lot less anxious, a lot more grounded and joyful. And I think the biggest part too is when I notice myself like falling off track, which I feel like I've been feeling really good in maybe the last 2 weeks. Like, I just started to feel a little more off again.
Yeah.
But the way I'm meeting the discomfort is really different. I'm just more taking a seat back and being present with it and observing it, versus like over identifying with it and getting so wrapped up in like, oh, I'm feeling anxious, it must mean this or that or the other has to change. Like, sometimes it's like, okay,
it just
anxiety's
is
here. Like, I can be with anxiety and still be okay.
Instead of like hyper focusing on it and intensifying it.
Yeah, instead of like defining myself by it and like just kind of seeing it as like, that's just a voice that's here right now. I'll acknowledge her and I will ask her what she needs.
Yeah.
And then I'm not gonna like, I just know that that's not who I really am. I'm this other place inside of me that's kind of witnessing that.
What do you think helped that change?
I think, on some level I've been thinking this about, I think I have always put a lot of work into myself.
Right.
And like my
Definitely.
internal, in my internal landscape.
Yeah.
So on some level, like.
And you could have created a business out of it too.
Yeah.
Out of constant, helping other people put in that work as well.
Yeah, like the things that, I mean, that's what I love to do most is like
Right.
the things that that help me be a person. I want to share those with others because being a person is really hard. Mm-hmm. So anything that's going to help you, I'm like, sign me up and I want to share it.
Yeah.
But I think in the, like, one level I want to like acknowledge and be proud of the person who has put in a lot of hard work and dedication over a lot of years.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, like definite changes I think I've made is like, I don't think I acknowledged how much COVID messed with me.
Yeah.
And like the way that it tore community away.
Yeah.
Like pre-COVID, I was teaching and in community like so much.
Yeah, all the
constantly.
time.
And then it all really changed. And I will say like in the last year, I've made a lot more intentional effort about not just like spending time with like family and friends, but more about like spending time in communities where I'm like deepening these parts of myself that are really important to me. So like going to a weekly meditation group and discussion, going to a yoga studio and meditation group there as well, and really having people to, having a sangha, having a community to like grow and work through things with has been a big one. And then I think a lot of just like trial and error and listening to myself and being willing to try different things and like what works and what doesn't.
Do you think that, like, these communities, have you just found, like, that you're putting more of an emphasis on the ones that matter? Or do you think, like, I feel like a lot of people through COVID have realized, like, that their time is really valuable. And, like, if they have relationships or maybe they haven't changed with someone or they no longer feel connected to someone and they feel like, I don't know, it's just that it's more important to really create time and space for the people that fill you up equally.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've kind of stepped away from some of those relationships that aren't serving you anymore and you've stepped into the ones that are?
I think so. I think I like really love the people in my life a lot. And even ones that like maybe don't serve the ways I'm growing, it's like people I still love and want to maintain a relationship with. And there are some people you do let go of, but that hasn't totally been my experience. But I think I've been more okay with like missing out on friend hangs or like not doing things and like being more okay with the time and space that I feel like fills my energy, and just not like having FOMO take over. And like I feel like I still have the relationships I had before.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, I probably spend about the same amount of time with the people that I did before.
Yeah.
But the pressure is off.
Right.
And some it's a little less, and that's okay too. But I don't feel like it's like a you can't be in my life anymore scenario. It just kind of feels like I'm focusing on these things more, and I'm really comfortable about it. And I'm fortunate that these people in my life like support it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. I feel like people have just really like since COVID, and I feel like we're still like figuring out how much we've been affected by kind of this like great pause. Like I've noticed that like a lot, even in my own like sphere of in the music industry, that like if somebody's like, oh, I don't go on until 9 p.m. I'm like, oh man,
like, I'm not
it's
gonna
so
stay
late.
out until...
Even though,
Dude, that has to be really hard in the music industry.
And yeah, I think like ticket sales, all of that, people are just like they've become comfortable with spending more time alone.
Yeah.
You know, or just in more of like a calm environment instead of like constantly needing that whatever thing that's on their schedule, you know?
Yeah, I think there has been a big shift in that. And I think some are a lot positive, like people being, you know, having less. I feel like, I mean, my like weekly calendar, I feel like pre-COVID, every night of the week there would be like something. It would
Right.
either be I was teaching or we had like a dinner with friends or like something.
Yeah.
And I've definitely let go of that. It's like
Right.
during the week,
It's
like
different now.
I'm going to go to meditation group in the evening. Maybe I'll go for a climb, but like I'm not trying to, I'm, you know, conserving my energy
Right.
more.
You're not like overextending yourself.
Yeah.
Which that makes sense for being in like a more happy, healthy
Yeah.
place as well.
Yeah.
Do you? Okay, are you where you thought you'd be a year ago? And we were kind of chatting in the kitchen earlier, and it's like, are you where you thought you'd be a year ago in your work? And are you where you thought you'd be a year ago, like, mentally?
I feel like I was kind of like leaning into this a little earlier, like work-wise. I am someone who is very much, I've always worked for myself in some capacity and like very much defined my worth by my work. I've always been really hard on myself in that area. So I think the work-wise, like, no, I'm not where I thought I would be a year ago. But I feel very much like I'm where I need to be right now. And I feel like the flip side and the rootedness and feeling like I'm where I need to be right now is that, like, I do feel so much better emotionally. I feel way less caught up. I feel like I still have a pattern of self-criticism and pressure that I put on myself big time, but I am witnessing her and I'm watching her and I'm just kind of loving her instead of like believing all the truths she's trying to tell me that aren't necessarily true. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm like really showing up every day. Like I feel like I'm not spending my day caught in my head. I feel like I'm paying attention to what is happening a lot more. And I feel like that the listening that I have with myself right now, the more confidence and trust I have with myself is like I am more able to surrender to the fact that like I don't really have any control or knowing over where I'm going, but like I know that I'm bringing this person here with me, like this, she's the one who's guiding me, and I've got the trust in her. And like that's enough.
As somebody that also really identifies with like what you do for work, measures your worth.
A little bit there.
Yeah, a little bit of a mirror there. I'm working on that personally. The reason I'm asking this question is because I had a friend the other week who was just like, what do you like to do for fun?
Yep.
And I was like,
I've had Will call me out on that so many times, like a couple years ago.
And I was like, I don't know.
A few years ago, he was like, what do you do for fun? And running with Mike doesn't count.
Yeah,
Mike is Emma's dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
But like kind of like an offshoot with that, like what, give me, because this is something that I feel like helped me with that a little bit, is who are you if you take your work away?
I feel like
asking the hard-hitting questions.
Thanks, Emma. But honestly, like, I think the last 2 years I've really consciously been working on that. Like, you know, right now we're throwing. I like really reclaimed this for myself. Like I used to teach and sell my work. Like that was a big part of my livelihood for a long time. And like taking that one back for me, like this is a joy again versus like a work. I think it's hard because like, you know, with Connect Wellness, teaching yoga is such a part, yoga and mindfulness is such a part of my work, but it's like my worldview. So I can't really separate myself from that. Yeah. But I feel like I've gotten better.
You can be a potter without being a pottery teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah, or a yoga. yogi without being a yoga instructor.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten better instead of like putting all the focus with meditation specifically on not always thinking about like deepening to teach or relating it to teaching and giving in some way, but just like really letting it being about nourishing me and deepening in that area.
Yeah.
And then I feel like honestly, the podcast, I think, has helped me explore other parts of myself, like getting really curious into herbalism and like spending. I've always loved running, but again, that can be like a pressure thing,
especially if you're not, I feel like, in a good place mentally. That can turn really quick into a negative cycle as well of like, you didn't do this yesterday, even though it's like you're now at this point where you're doing it because it brings you joy. You can be like, I said I was going to run 3 days a week and I only ran 2 days a week. Yeah. And then it's kind of you're taking away like the joy part of it, you know, it becomes homework.
Yeah. And when you're saying joy, like, I feel like that's something I've like really consciously worked, which just, this sounds like, this is like, I feel like such a Saturn Aquarius little thing here, but like I have very consciously been working on being playful again, because I feel like my like natural state, like you've known me, it's super goofy, super playful,
so goofy,
but I can get so
tell
into
them what
that.
you just did.
What did I just
What'd you just do in the kitchen?
Oh, this is a fun story. So I have a really cool allergy. Oh, you need something? You need something from me? In high school, I had gotten my first EpiPen. And when you get an EpiPen, they give you like a tester to practice on. So I thought it was really funny and really cool when I got my first EpiPen to mess with Emma. So I was like, hey, Emma, you want me to like pick you up and take you to whatever practice we had? It was Quidditch. I'm actually certain that it was Quidditch practice. I'm so sorry you have that gross feel. Meanwhile, Emma's like trying to throw a pot on a wheel that we literally had to duct tape the button to down on because it wasn't working, and she's just such a pro. So I got a new EpiPen, and I had my tester one, and I was like, Emma, can I get you like some chocolate and some tea?
Yeah, so nice.
And it was so nice to her because I'm so nice.
Triggering me up.
Then I stabbed her with the tester EpiPen just to get the freak out on her face.
I really was like a Disney Channel original movie. I feel like somebody should have. I think I screamed.
You did.
At the top of my lungs.
Yeah, you did.
Because she also had the car doors. First of all, the first thing that she did is she looked at me with like pure evil in her eyes, and I'm like, what's going on? And then she just locked the door with like one eyebrow up. She puts the child lock on, and I'm like, why the fuck are you putting the lock? Why are you locking me in your car? And then she just pulls out her EpiPen and stabs it as hard as she can into my thigh. I don't think you did a great job of really explaining to the people the setup for that.
You did. Yeah. So I recreated it for her today because you're helping me grow and become playful again.
And that's how you help. And that's
how you help a friend, Emma.
I'm so glad that's the inner child that I pull out of you. It's a terrifying place for me.
I mean, Austin Zazer's my brother, so like I have to have some of that in me.
Yeah. Haha, so fun. Love it.
But aside from just stabbing an EpiPen in you for joy, but like it is fun. I don't know. I just
it is fun. It's so fun. So fun for Holly. So
it is fun for Holly. But I really feel like being with you, like when we visited you, literally when Will and I went, the last episode we did with Emma,
being
was
with you, it makes it so much easier for me to do things.
For me,
like fake harm.
It really does. It really does, because I know you'll love me anyway. Yeah. But I remember when we left you last year.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, Emma's so like playful and fun and confident and goofy, and like I miss that in me. And it's been like literally an intention I write down every day as a part of my affirmations. Like playful is a part of it. And it's like calling in that you remind me to play. So
I love that.
Thank you for the EpiPen.
Thank you.
Joy you bring me.
Anytime, just not often.
I got to throw that back at you, though.
Oh, yeah.
Who do you think you are outside of work?
Oh, I really had to, I think it took a year. This was, kind of what we talked about in the last podcast, which was, when I stepped away from music. It had been such a deeply, ingrained part of how I viewed myself, you know? So we kind of gone over that at the last one where it's, you know, like it's kind of just being like also American, where I feel like I had like my friend Katerina, who was not, you remember Katerina, who was not from the United States. And she would always be like, it's so American that you guys always say what you do for work.
Yeah.
Like in the first 3 minutes of meeting someone, like you ask their name.
And you normally say like, I am X.
Yeah.
Versus like, I work as, or I do.
And then I think that also is hard because if you're someone who, like, honestly, power to you. I have friends who are like, yeah, I have this job and it sucks, but I just leave it and I come home and I get to go to concerts and I get to do this and like it's just paying for me to live my life the way that I want to. And I was like always like, wow, that sounds so healthy. Good for you.
It's a really cool juxtaposition,
right? But then it also, I feel like they feel really alienated when you have those conversations because they're like, oh, I'm an accountant, but
I'm more
numbers
than that.
are not my, like, it's not the thing I'm most passionate.
Not the only thing about me.
Yeah, I'm most passionate about. And they always kind of, I feel like it's sometimes it can be veiled in a little bit of like embarrassment almost, that they were like, where, you know, over here I'm like, I followed my dream and turns out it's really hard and nobody told you that, you know, like that's how it feels. So I feel like it really took me like a year in COVID of just like really going inward and like seeing who I am. And I feel like that kind of transitions into now, like that thing we were talking about, which is like internal family systems, which is just like all of the different versions of yourself that you hold, you know, and like we're the vessel and they can all exist simultaneously.
Yep.
And learning that I don't have to choose was really important, you know, that I can, and it's not be a lot for a long time in my life. I really felt like almost not authentic because I feel like I can be kind of chameleon-like in like whatever social scenario I'm in, you know?
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And so then going home at the end of those interactions and being like, well, who am I? You know, if I can, you know, jump in a conversation with this group and then go meet up with this group and what does that mean that I am? And now coming to like an understanding that those are all part of me. So I feel like, I feel like I'm playful and like that's like my inner child and I'm trying to create more room for her. And I'm also a boss ass businesswoman and I love to like go in and make deals, whether that's, you know, even just like getting a good deal at Target or whatever. And I love to be outside and like honoring that part in me that like really enjoys nature, you know, that feels like no matter how stressed I am, I can go outside and I can look up at the sky and I can feel better and just like accepting all of those different parts of me, you know?
Something I was thinking about this morning even was like, I think I've carried like a level of shame that maybe like
around
like,
what
I tried doing this for work and it didn't work.
Oh,
or I tried doing that and it didn't work, and feeling shameful that like
the old failure.
Yeah, the failure thing. And also like
most people
it takes
fail.
a lot of vulnerability to put yourself out there in new ways. But the thing that I was just coming to is like, you can't know what's right for you if you don't know what's wrong for you. And there's like no shame in trying on a lot of different things in life.
And you should celebrate that you tried. How many people never try?
Yeah. And how bored, like, I mean, if you're someone who like, this has not been my experience, so I'm not, but if you're someone who like, you've just always known and you've done it and you've been able to grow in this one way and this one thing and it really fills you up, like,
that's
more
amazing.
power to you. I love it. For me, it's been like all these, like right now, really leaning into the podcast and really leaning into writing and other elements of myself. It's like, it's because I've grown. Like, I feel like I'm finally at a point where I am someone who is strong enough to honor her voice and want to be heard versus just wanting to be in the background, appeasing everyone, making sure everyone's comfortable and saying what I think they want to hear. So I just like I just was like taking a moment to celebrate, like, I'm proud of you for trying things on. And like, maybe we're not done trying things on, and that's great. Like, we're still learning and growing. Like, it would maybe be boring if you just were like,
I hope you're never done trying things on. I hope we're fucking old ladies here still being like, I'm thinking about trying this, you know? Right?
I will say Jada, my sister, who I did an episode on creativity with. I'll put that episode in the show notes with Jada and David. Maybe it was episode 25. But 1 year, I think it was last year or 2 years ago for my birthday, her birthday wish to me was, I hope that you discover a bunch of parts of yourself that you don't even know yet. And I try to like remember that every year of like, what parts of me
have I yet to be introduced to?
Know? Yeah.
I actually, when we were just talking about this, it reminded me of, I don't remember what it was for, honestly, but Jada and David were like interviewing different artists, like just to get little blurbs, I think, for like Instagram or something a really long time ago. And they interviewed me, like, just, it was more of just like, here's a prompt, respond with like a sentence kind of thing.
Oh, I think I remember
this
years ago.
Yes,
like,
years and years ago. We were in college, like maybe even freshman year of college. Yeah. And it was about like taking that leap of faith into something that is like more of a creative endeavor, you know? Mm-hmm. And I remember that my response was, well, and it was about like going to music school and, you know, deciding that I wanted to be a musician. And my response was, I would rather try and fail than never try at all, you know?
I mean, the way that I've seen it, this is like the reason I ran a half marathon, because one day I got the idea, like I was just getting into running and I was like, oh, maybe I should run.
You said, why not take it to the extreme? Well, I just started.
It's so Saturn of me. I just started running. I'm like, what if I ran a half marathon? And then I was like, oh, well, now you have to do that, because if I don't, it's like I would be telling myself like I couldn't and I wasn't willing to try in some way. Like I would rather just try and see how it goes. But also, like, you know, balancing and not putting like the craziest amount of pressure on yourself is a good thing too.
Yes.
Like, I think my half marathon days are done, but I also like love I don't know.
Yeah.
It's good to try and push yourself and grow. Absolutely. And it's also good to learn to listen and balance and honor yourself.
So I would say maybe we are learning to hit the brakes a little bit more after years of trying to challenge ourselves like to the extreme.
I was sharing this in a meditation group the other day too. Is like, I feel like I've gotten like good at hitting the brakes. Like I've gotten a lot better about it. I am so much chiller with myself. My days are so much chiller. Like, and there's space for that, and I'm so grateful for it. But I still have that voice that comes in that's like, have you chilled out too much now though? Like, what are you doing? And it's like, I think honoring that the voice can be wrong and right sometimes, like knowing how to listen to like, when is it right and when is it wrong? When is that just that pattern of criticism that I have still coming in? And then when is it like, oh yeah, like maybe we could push a little more in this area, or like do this extra thing in a new way.
What do you think are the physical cues for you of knowing that you're pushing too hard?
For me, I mean, this is like a lucky, unlucky one, but I got shingles in my right eye in college, and I almost lost my eyesight. And when you get shingles, if you have it really bad, there's something called post-herpetic neuralgia you get, which is like post-shingles pain. And even to this day, if I am really tired or really stressed, I feel that pain on the right side of my face.
What a like terrible gift.
Gift. And it's like, it could come back. And I, obviously don't want that, because I probably would lose my eyesight. So if I feel that pain, it's like a hit the brakes now. I think I have gotten better about noticing that. I will say Will is really good
I'm
about
telling you.
checking me. Like,
oh, so is Cameron. He took my phone away from me the other day.
Yeah, Will, like, the other day he was like,
It's like, who could you possibly need to email at 9:30 at night?
No, good job, Cam. Thank you, Cam. Yeah, Will be like, you just need to go lay down and take a nap right now. And I'm like, no. And he's like, no, actually you do. Like, that's, having someone else is really key. But I think I notice, like, physically, if I feel anxious, I am probably pushing too much. I'm probably not taking care of all of myself in some way. Right. Anxiety is a big one. Tightness of chest is something that relates to it. I think feeling cloudy in my head is something I notice a lot. When I don't feel like clear and present, it's normally because I'm like
clear and
I'm
present.
not clear and present. Yeah, I'm not taking time to really be where I am. I think those are the main things. What about you?
Well, you know I've had hot girl IBS for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Hot girl IBS. We love it.
Yes, my old roommate Meredith coined that term. Forget hot girl summer.
Hot girl IBS.
Hot girl IBS. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'd say my tummy has always been a pretty big, like, what's up? You got a big day today? Mm-hmm. You know? And then also, like, if I'm just not doing well or I'm really, like, overdoing it, having a lot of, like, just pain and uncomfortableness in my stomach. For me, it's kind of like a threefold thing. So it's like all of these things, which now that I know myself better, I'm realizing like these are things that have always been there, and I didn't have the knowledge or the voice to name them as things that are like the yellow flags that my body's sending out when I'm not taking care of myself. So it's stomach stuff. I would always get migraines, especially when I was like touring and stuff. And stomach stuff, migraines, and then like just randomly feeling nauseous in like when with food. It's like I could be starving, and if I have to like, I'll notice it even now, like if I have to go to like a really fancy dinner or it's like some type of like meeting or something like that, I'll be like starving, walk in, start eating. About halfway through, I'm like, oh my God. And that is something that I have a couple friends who deal with anxiety who have that as a really similar symptom as well, which maybe that's still stomach stuff. But yeah, I'm now learning, like, I just always would jump to go to my doctor and be like, or a specialist even, and be like, what is this? What's causing this? What's wrong with me? And then you go through the ringer of what is the, American medical system and healthcare system, and getting passed around from specialist to specialist. And now kind of as an adult, I'm realizing like, what if this was just anxiety and nobody could see the like full picture here instead? And now learning to tune into those and be like, maybe I need to just slow down. Maybe this is my body trying to signal something to me.
That's really similar to my experience growing up. Like I shared in the first episode of this podcast that like as a kid, I always had really bad stomach pains. It was like a routine. Like I would vomit all the time.
That's what they called her, old vomit Holly.
Old vomiter, eh? Like it was literally like a routine. I would wake up in the middle of the night, wake up from sleeping. Wow. To puke, and Jade would be like, Mom, Dad, Holly's
she's
puking
doing
again.
It again.
Yeah, and it was like a routine. No one was stressed about it. We all knew the drill.
Yeah.
And I, went to so many doctors, tried so many things for so long, and I think once a doctor asked me like if I felt nervous, and that was the first time I was like, maybe there's something else going on here.
Yeah. The one good doctor.
The one good doctor, but again, we didn't have language for it at the time. We didn't really deal with it at the time. I don't think until my adult life did I acknowledge like, oh, a lot of that stomach pain growing up was that anxiety.
Was the anxiety monster. Yeah, I feel like it's really interesting that you can have these things kind of going on your whole life, and it's not until, because it's with experience. Like I feel like I'm realizing now where I'm like, oh, in our last podcast, we were talking about like how had kind of stepped away from music in general because I wasn't doing well mentally.
Yeah.
And trying to like take some time and pause and reflect on how that was affecting my mental health. Mm-hmm. Well, recently I've been like talking to my therapist and was realizing, I'm having all the same things happen, and I'm no longer, actively touring or doing any of those things that I was pointing my finger at and blaming, and was like, oh, I'm the problem. Mm-hmm. It's not what I'm doing. It's how I'm pushing myself to that extreme and trying to not pay attention to all of these little signals that we're talking about with our bodies, Yeah.
I feel like that's such a relatable one. And like, I think that's something my meditation practice has helped me a lot with. And I honestly think like the first episode I did of this podcast has helped me a lot with this, because I've had those moments where I'm like, ooh, like that Mean Girl soundtrack is real loud in my head right now about this and that and the other. And then I listened back to that episode of like, what were the intentions of why I started this and how I want to move through this. And that's like the check-in. And I find my practice to be like a space where it's like, the soundtrack is on again. That's interesting. Like, let's watch it for a minute. Like, now what does she need? Does she need like a hug? How can we meet her differently and not don't let her like take the car off the road. Like, and stay the course. Can we check in with how we want to be as we're moving through this? And
you kind of explained like you started this to move through slowly and compassionately. And do you still feel like you're on track with that? It seems like the podcast has, if anything, like brought you more in tune with that. Do you feel like you're staying par for the course?
I am a human, so like on
most days,
confession, in all moments, no. Like there are the days where I have that soundtrack of criticism and I'm like, I want it now. But then there is that hard self-work I've been working on and strengthening that muscle of like, I see that and like here's what we're dedicated to now. Here's the way we want to move through it. And I think I do feel like I'm rooted in that at a very core level, and I think I'm more able to recognize when I fall off course and bring it back, and acknowledging like, everything's a double-edged sword. If you're going to choose to move slow and be present in your life and not push yourself and fall into that grind culture, like, say you're working a 9 to 5, maybe you don't get that promotion. Or say you have a podcast, maybe it doesn't grow as quick as you think.
You have to weigh that.
And for me, I feel like I have a lot of trust in myself, and I want to be really present right now so that I'm present for now, right? That's enough. And so that I do trust that things will grow and it's not going to look like my timeline. And when they do, I feel, again, authentic and rooted when I land there.
And ready
instead
to step
of like
into it.
Getting there and feeling like it doesn't feel like me or off or burnt out and not able to live it. I want to like...
It's so real.
Yeah. I think we were at a women's circle the other night and someone said like, if it's not for me, take it from me. And that has like really resonated with me. Like, I want to show up as fully and authentically as me, and then if it's not for me, then take it. I don't want it. Yeah. Like, even if I think I want it, give me what I really need.
I had a professor who used to say, and I think now I'm realizing he was more talking about mental health, where he was like, and just like working, appropriately, but he was like, it's a shame to be prepared and never get the call. It's a travesty to get the call and not be prepared.
That's a beautiful way
Yeah.
to put that.
I didn't really like him, but I liked that.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. And that really obviously has stuck with me all these years because he was really, you know, talking about it like in the musical sense of like, you know, practicing your instrument and everything. But I feel like that has changed for me. And like, I remember there were times when I was just not taking care of myself and the pressure and the anxiety was getting too high and I was barely making it there and barely getting on stage and not fully like relishing the experience because I had gotten the call, but I wasn't all there, you know?
I think that happens to so many people. Like, you might get to the top of that mountain you've been climbing,
but you're also like, gonna
but wait, I still want this now.
Hyperventilate in the closet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, or it just doesn't feel it doesn't fill that void maybe you've been trying to fill.
And it's cool to see like the younger generations being like, you guys are idiots, you know, like the 80s, the 90s, it's over. Like this pushing yourself, working these absolutely bonkers amount of hours a week, Wall Street, greed is good. Yeah. Does not leave a happier, fulfilled person at the end of their life. And you might have, you know, a really beautiful home, but who says you can't have both, you know, or just reevaluate. Or
find a balance in it. Yeah. Like what's going to bring you that truest joy? Is it a bigger house or is it like a little bit smaller one that you get to actually be inside?
Right.
You know?
Right. What do you think you could tell like the people that are listening? Are there things with your own experience? Are there things that you do to bring yourself back when you're starting to get to one of those points? Is there like a breathing exercise you do? Is there a day-to-day activity? Is there something that you could offer that maybe could help somebody else?
Yeah.
Or me?
Yeah. Honestly, for me, it's all about routine. Like I am someone who, I mean, I've talked about it before in this podcast. Like my morning routine and ritual.
Sacred Holly time.
So sacred. And it's allowed to change too, right? Like I will say this past year, I have really deepened my morning meditation practice. I used to do it like laying in bed for 10 minutes with some coffee, and that's great if that's where you're at. And I've been in a place now where it's been more, you know, I don't drink caffeine anymore or coffee anymore, and it's been like
how's that?
Oh, so helpful.
The people want to know.
The people want to know.
Are you okay?
I am doing very well. I mean, I had a matcha today because I wanted one, and it was great. But I highly advise, something that has helped me a lot in the last year is trying things and taking them away and then trying them again and taking them away. It's called ABA experimentation. Like you have a baseline, you try something new, you come back to feel what works and doesn't work. And that's a big part of why I don't really drink anymore, why I don't drink caffeine anymore, is because I've spent time trying things, noticing how it makes me feel, and then like taking it away and back and forth. And now I can tell the differences in my body and my mind. So I definitely recommend like pay attention to what you consume and how you consume it, and don't be afraid. Why. Yeah, and why, and don't be afraid to take things away and then invite them back in and then take them away again to tell the difference, right? Like it takes time to get to know yourself and what works for you and what doesn't. But I will say like my meditation practice is the foundation of bringing me back when I fall off course. Meditation and self-compassion. So when I notice myself on a bad day, if it's a really bad day, 9 times out of 10, first of all, I think this is like the most important thing, is halt. And it's you ask yourself, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? 9 times out of 10, it's one of those. Yeah, tired and hungry is normally me.
I turn into an adult toddler when I'm really tired.
Yeah, I turn into a monster when I'm hungry. Meet that need, right? Like give your body, meet your basic needs first. take a nap, do that thing. And then really, I think my practice over the last year has become a lot about witnessing the discomfort that's there and not feeling like I need to push it away, not feeling like I need to run away from it, not feeling like I even need to do anything in that moment to change it. But rather just like being with like, like this is an uncomfortable moment right now. I see what's happening right now. And then bringing like presence and compassion to it, presence and love to it, asking it what it needs and meeting that need.
Letting it be seen.
Letting it be seen, letting her be heard.
Yeah.
Loving that part of yourself too. And just like you said, like with those internal family systems, it's like, if I just try to shut you away, you're just going to scream louder. And like, I'm not really loving myself if I deny that part of me. So just being really willing to be with all of me.
Yeah.
But really for me, it's like checking in. Did I fall off my routine? Do I need tonight to get in a robe, eat some chocolate, go to bed early?
That's the go-to.
And yeah. What about you?
I feel like most of the time I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm overworked. I haven't given my brain at that point has gone into overdrive from the amount of work, where I start to really notice like I'm waking up and the first thing I'm thinking about is the giant list of things that I didn't get done yesterday or the things that I need to get done today. And that's about rest too, because I'm not allowing my like mental state to rest, right? And that was kind of like what we have talked about in the past, where you kind of gave me this really great advice where maybe you need, if you're self-employed, you need to take off 2 consecutive days, because one day can sometimes not even be enough to get your brain to stop moving at the pace that honestly a lot of times you have to run if you're running your own business, you know? And like, I feel like for me, it's really, that's been my biggest battle, is like learning physical rest, but even more so like mental rest, and how to not bring my work home when my literal workstation is also in my house, you know? And trying to create those boundaries for myself is something that I'm just recently have kind of come to like realize, and slowing down and realizing, taking the time for myself to get outside. Cause like I was saying, I just really kind of, everything seems not as bad if I can go for a walk, you know, and not as bad if I can get my hands dirty for a little bit, or not as bad if I can laugh and create the time to do that with and be silly, because that's like honoring who I am, you know. And I feel like it's typically just like rest and restoring and making the time for that.
What do you think about that, Luna?
We have a little cute little puppy dog for everybody.
Yeah, you're covered in water right now.
Yeah, that's just coming up to taste some clay.
Yeah, she loves it.
Yeah.
I love that, though. I think that's really good advice of stopping that. Often when you like are trying to let go of a pattern or something hard, you got to replace it with something else. So like noticing my mind isn't turning off right now, but if I just tell my mind to stop, it's probably not gonna. So if I can give her something else to focus on.
It's so weird how it doesn't just stop when I tell it to.
It's wild how it really turns on more when you do that, you know? Like,
yeah, and I've also found talking to myself out loud helps.
Oh, I love that. I think that's why I write, because it's like, these are the words.
And I have a really hard time with sticking with like a journal routine in the morning. But I've really noticed if those thoughts are getting really loud and really fast, like verbally instructing myself that like right when I wake up, you have nowhere to be and no one to answer to in this moment. So just calm yourself in this moment. And that seems to be a helpful thing. And then my boyfriend's like, who are you talking to?
And you're like, don't worry about it.
Myself.
You love her too. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. So I feel like that's been a new and fun thing that I've picked up on. But
so as we go into this next year, it's kind of cool that we're doing this around this time of year. Because it's kind of like, it's not like the new year, but
everything's
it's
growing.
the astrological new year.
It's
pretty
spring.
much. It's spring. It's a time of bloom. What is it that, I guess, what do you want to do? What do you want your intention to be? How do you want to feel as you move through this next year?
I would say I'd give myself an intention for this time, maybe not like the entire year, but I would say right now my intention is to do things that bring me happiness and joy, or will bring me happiness and joy, because you can do hard things that don't feel joyful.
Yes,
that'll help you get there,
especially if you're like experiencing depression or in a low place. Like, what you want to do is probably not going to make you feel better.
Choosing things that are going to set me up for joy and happiness, and more of that time to rest and restore and find those moments in my day-to-day life, I think is my biggest focus right now. Going for that walk, even if it's at 8 a.m. before I start my work day, turning my phone off at 6 p.m. because it can wait. It doesn't have to happen right now. I'm
Certainly
like,
not.
and I it's art. Like what?
It's not.
What timeline could you possibly be on? You know
exactly.
And I think that that's just like part of the culture too, and learning to be like, I will respond to you when I am in this space to work, and right now I'm not. So I think creating that boundary and focusing on what's going to bring me joy and happiness in the long run and in my day-to-day life is what I'm going to try to move forward and focus on.
Yeah.
And that can be hard stuff too, but
very much.
What about you?
I think mine right now is I'm really noticing my patterns and continuing to notice them and fill them with presence and love. That's like a huge focus, just noticing these patterns, not over-identifying with them, continuing that work. And I think a lot of what my intention is continuing to step into my voice and confidence in myself and putting that out there. And I am someone who loves to get things done and check off the box. And this is like something Will has always been like, but what if you slow down and refine it just a little bit? And I'm like, no, that's suppressing me. Yeah. But I think I finally feel like she is worthy enough of it can wait, and we can slow down and take a little time to grow a little more and refine a little more and put out there what feels most authentic and powerful. So I think that a lot of the themes that have existed before, but a lot of like loving myself enough to put in a little bit harder work in a soft way. Yeah. And trusting myself and my voice and letting it be heard and not being afraid to ask for that. Yeah.
I love that.
I love you.
I love you.
Thanks.
And I love Luna.
We love Luna.
And we love pottery.
This is literally a dream.
And I hope I get to grow with you for the rest of my life.
You hope you will. I'm a little
That wasn't really the response I was expecting.
I was like,
your face was immediately like, what are you talking about?
What do you mean? Something happening that I don't know
I was just saying something sweet. Say yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Love you.
I love you too. How the wise one grows. Do, do, do.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to How the Wise One Grows today. If this podcast has been impactful in your life, can you support it by following and subscribing to this podcast on your favorite streaming platform. This will make sure you never miss an episode. All you have to do is go to the show page for How the Wise One Grows and hit the plus or the follow button in the top right-hand corner. While you're there, go ahead and leave a review, preferably a 5-star review, and share an episode with someone you love in your life. And if you want to support even further, you can join the How the Wise One Grows Dream Team and become a part of a group of magical people who support this podcast every month. And you'll even get a special shout out in an upcoming episode. Until the next time, let's keep taking it one breath at a time.